Tim Albright with AVNation with an ISE preview special. With us to talk about just all things ISE and look ahead to what they have planned, Mr. Dan Goldstein from the new old AVIXA. How are you, sir?
I'm very well. How are you, Tim?
I am doing well. One thing that InfoComm / AVIXA, and I apologize because I'm going back and forth on this, but AVIXA at InfoComm last year,
right? Got you. Yes.
At the show, you guys revealed a brand new program called Tide, the Tide Conference. And I'm assuming it was relatively successful because you're doing it at ISE this year, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Coming up in 2018. Talk a little bit about if folks aren't familiar with what Tide was or what Tide is as a conference, and kind of who you expect to, like, who's the ideal attendee for that.
Sure. So Tide it's an acronym. It stands for Technology, Innovation, Design, and Experience. And the idea behind it is to really give a slightly different context to all the technology that's on the show floor at events like the InfoComm show and ISE in Amsterdam. As you know, AVIXA as an association has a fantastic and we like to think, very well-earned reputation for our technical training and our education and our certification. And we're continuing to do that and develop a new courseware around that. But that's very much kind of science-based and quite fixed, I guess, in the sense that it's formal training, formal curriculum. It deals in absolutes. F equals MA, V equals IR, and so on and so forth. Tide is different. Tide is much more about offering, painting a picture of how the industry is evolving, what the applications are for AV technology, how those AV systems are being designed, how people are interacting with them, what kind of experience they're having, and it's much less prescriptive. It's really saying, here's some of the cool stuff that's going on in the world. Here are some of the really groundbreaking ways in which technology is being used and applied to real world problems. But then, as far as the audience is concerned, it's not like, okay, now you know what to do, go ahead and do it. It's not like now you know how to build a rack. It's up to you, I think, as an attendee to decide, whether which of these different paths you want to go down in your career or in your business, and maybe some of it works for you, and maybe some of it doesn't. Maybe you find the whole day to be endlessly inspiring, which we hope you do, but you can only actually implement a couple of those things, and that's fine. We're totally cool with that. We just really want to have an opportunity to try and make people think a little bit differently about the jobs they do and the work that they do and the projects they work on every day.
Well, and experience has become a part of AVIXA's DNA, right? From the strategic plan from 2 or 3 years ago, both you and Mr. Labuscas talked about experience when you announced the transition between InfoComm and AVIXA. I think it's incredibly important.
Yeah, it is, because I think and we've talked about this quite a bit, but so much about the technology itself is commoditized now. You think of what's happened to the IT industry with so much of their technology moving from enterprise-based hardware solutions up into the cloud. Now, yes, there's a limit to how far that can happen with AV, because luckily for us, you can't actually put loudspeakers in the cloud or that microphone that you're speaking into now, Tim, or indeed the screens that we're both using. So, but there is this this commoditization. It is harder to make a margin out of hardware than it used to be, and that means that the value of AV, if the industry is going to continue to grow, more and more of that value is going to be in delivering an end user experience. And certainly I think what is different about Tide is that's where we start. That's our starting point. Our starting point is how people are experiencing the technology, what value are they deriving from it, and then we work back from that instead of starting with the technology and trying to figure out if there's a use for it.
But and one thing that I find interesting, and when you did Tide in Orlando at InfoComm last year, and this one coming up in Amsterdam,
Mm-hmm.
it are the people you have speaking, right? This is not your traditional, you know, InfoComm class on IT networking, right?
Right, right, yeah,
This is not, you know, some person who has a CTS after their name or a CTSD or
absolutely not.
CTSI.
Yeah,
These are
absolutely.
artists, right? These are artists and creatives
Mm-hmm.
who are talking to, you know, both, you know, our industry folks as well as integrators, customers as well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a great point, Tim. We set out right from the beginning to, you know, you create a new program and you try and set some guardrails around it to make sure you kind of stay on track. And one of the things we said was, we don't want a single person speaking at Tide who has ever spoken at an InfoComm show or an ISE show before. And that's not to run any of those people down, right? They do a fantastic job. But it was really just so that we kind of, to make sure that we were challenging ourselves
Hmm.
to come up with new people who would have new perspectives. And some of them are artists, as you say, some of them are designers, some of them are actually technologists, but they're not necessarily AV technologists.
Yeah.
You know, they're from the tech industry more broadly. And it's been really interesting, you know, putting the Amsterdam program together, having, you know, oversight of that. I'm not kind of on the day to day, but having oversight of that program as it's developed. And I had a real concern. You know, I was kind of thinking, okay, so if we approach someone like Dan Rosegard, who's our opening keynote, who is an artist and visionary, or someone like Sabine de Schutter, who's an interior lighting designer and looks at how we work with space and light and shade and create an experience in that way. We've got a guy called Ben Morsum whose business is helping businesses to communicate, but not necessarily using AV or using technology at all. Just internal business communication. That's his speciality. I was kind of concerned that we'd approach these people and they'd say, and they'd look at ISE and they'd look at the AV industry and they'd go, "Ooh, I don't know, AV, well, not really me, not sure I can speak to that." And actually quite the reverse. None of them has ever attended ISE before, okay?
Yeah.
But they've looked at the ISE website, they've looked at the AVIXA website, they've looked at the Tide website, and they've said, "Yeah, you know what? I can totally speak to this. I've got an angle." And we had a kickoff call, funnily enough, with Dan Rosegard last week, and he said, "I can totally do this. You know, we can craft something that will absolutely resonate with this audience and give them something to think about, but in a way that they can relate to the work they do every day. That's not completely aspirational and you know, out in the clouds somewhere."
Yeah, I think that's incredibly important, is to give folks not an actionable plan, but actionable experience, and also, you know, inspire aspirational inspiration. If I
Yeah,
can say that right.
yeah. Yes, we want people to be inspired. I think that's what you get, and I think that's the feedback that we had from people who came to the event in Orlando. It was just, you know, and some of it is, you know, it is kind of a little bit out there, but I think if it, you know, if you think about it, it's an extremely creative industry. We do tend to kind of emphasize the technology a lot because we're all kind of techies. We're all a little bit nerdy, and that's how we got into it in the first place. But if you think, and I think, funnily enough, it's actually becoming increasingly creative. I think, you know, if you look at the rooms that we used to design, these kind of big corporate boardrooms or whatever, and it was all about creating the perfect environment for PowerPoint. That's not really where the industry is anymore. Now it's all about encouraging creative work and collaboration in enterprises, and you don't necessarily need a big AV spaceship of a ballroom in order to do that. What you need is smaller, more collaborative spaces, huddle spaces, different scrum rooms, you know, all these different, you know, it's not really my world, but these are the phrases I hear kind of bandied around. And that, of course, challenges us to design our systems and our solutions differently, take a completely different approach to how we deal with our customer. And I was at an AV users group event in London a couple of weeks ago, and there the discussion among the vendors, actually among the manufacturers, is, you know, how do we go to our customers in such a way where we're not starting with the technology discussion. We're not just going into the IT department and saying, "Hey, we could put this stuff on your network." we're going in and having a much broader discussion with the C-suite, maybe with facilities, maybe with the HR department, maybe with the marketing department, and try and work out what they're trying to achieve. And because if you know what your customers are trying to accomplish, I think you're much more likely to be able to design and execute an AV system that they will really value.
Yeah, absolutely. The Integrated Systems Europe itself is February 6th through the 9th, but this conference is the day before,
Right.
February 5th. If folks are attending and coming to ISE, how do they find out more, or how do they register for Tide?
So it has a dedicated website, tideconference.com, Tide Conference, all one word. The location is the Hotel Okura, which is just across the street from the convention center, about a 10 or 15-minute walk. So it's very convenient if you're at the RAI already that day. And, you know, a lot of people do come into Amsterdam on the Monday anyway, so no need for kind of radical changes in travel plans, that kind of thing. We try to make it as easy as possible for people to make this very new experience part of the regular ISE visit that pilgrimage that they make to Amsterdam in February every year.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Mr. Dan Goldstein from AVIXA, thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you.